My name is Eusebius McKaiser. I'm a political analyst, broadcaster, writer, and I would have been a young black academic if the second session today had already happened before I left the academy. Be that as it may, I'm now in the media, and my job here is going to be to help us keep time, keep to the themes, pull together some of the conversations. I must say that it's very exciting to be here, especially for me. Higher education is something that I'm incredibly passionate about. I'm an associate at Wits University in their ethics center within the philosophy department. And I've studied philosophy postgraduate, lectured in moral philosophy, formal logic, argumentation theory. Almost chose an academic career, but didn't. And when I looked at the program, when Sheila and I talked about it in Johannesburg a couple of months ago, I was incredibly excited because I think a lot of the themes we're going to be exploring over the next 2.5 days absolutely close to my heart and salient for the country as a whole, ranging from questions around what exactly do we need from universities as a society and also from the point of view of business, but in turn, because this is ultimately about a social compact that we're hoping to forge over the next 2 days, also what exactly do universities need from the other stakeholders who are present here, including big business and philanthropy. And I think that's a conversation that can only happen when all those stakeholders are in the same place. So from my side, right up front, also congratulations on the organizers for getting us all into this room for 2.5 days. We often have these conversations in silos in South Africa, rather than tactically making sure we're on the same page, in the same space. And I think a retreat like this in Cape Town is absolutely the right place where we can try and hopefully have those conversations frankly and honestly. I struggle to decide which of the different conversations I'm most looking forward to, because I think that's how well thought through the program actually is. So the next 2.5 days, from my side, certainly I'm looking forward to it. Just a couple of house rules before we get started. Wi-Fi is available, so if you want to access the internet, just grab one of the staff members. They are the men and women in black with their staff badges all around them, and they'll be able to give you a voucher. I do know if you stay in the hotel like I am, you can also access Wi-Fi just using basically your details in terms of your room number, surname, and then you set up an account for yourself. It takes 1 minute. I did it last night and it does function quite well, both on the phone and on if you have a laptop as well. So Wi-Fi is available. If you've got any problems around that, just give us a shout and I'll direct you towards the staff, but a lot of them at the back and you'll see them around. Secondly, throughout the next 2.5 days, just watch out for the electronic boards that you see around the venue. They will have all sorts of detail that you need for the different events, such as when the shuttle service will be leaving, tomorrow night to the award ceremony and all other announcements. I'll make them anyway, as much as possible. But in addition to that, just keep an eye open just to make sure you're on the same page about any changes in terms of logistics or other aspects of this retreat. If you need the ablution facilities, this venue is perfectly located down here in the dungeon. If you just go outside the door, you'll find the men's on the left and the ladies on the right, so it's also very easy. And besides that, if you had that letter in your room that welcomed you from the conference, you will see some contact numbers there as well from the staff members, so in case of emergency, you should be able to have that, just make sure that you keep those numbers. That's basically it in terms of the most important parts of the housekeeping. This event, a lot of people will be tweeting it, blogging it. That's part of the brilliance of Inyathelo, to make sure that we archive the conversation online, but just so that we're all on the same page, I think it's reasonable just to make that clear up front so that you're not surprised when you find yourself appearing on a Twitter timeline somewhere. What you are saying is probably going to be archived as you are speaking in real time. I myself will do some tweeting, so you can either give us a lovely soundbite and get into the news, Adam, or alternatively, you might want to tailor your thoughts now that you know that in fact this conversation is one that also will be publicly tweeted, and I've already seen some of the staff doing that this morning, which I think is fantastic, because these conversations have got to be taken to a wider audience. Timekeeping is going to be very important. We're running a tight schedule over the next 2.5 days, and I'm in particular appealing to the session moderators, because I'm not moderating all of the sessions, but if you are a session moderator, feel free to be magisterial. There are many important voices present at this conference. We want to hear all of them, and I would love to see South Africans role modeling how to be pithy in their remarks. So we really need to keep time. From my side, don't be offended. That's one of my roles here, is to make sure that we tick over the time. So that's going to be very important. particularly for the session moderators who will be in charge of the various sessions when I'm not in charge of them. I give you full permission. You can blame me if they don't like it. And then first up, I want to invite Sheila to the podium to just make some welcoming remarks. Sheila and I started communicating a couple of months ago. And of course, she's been one of the founders of Inyathelo, but she's well known in South Africa, having worked previously as IDASA, but also in the non-profit sector, and also as a fundraiser at UCT for several years. So the issues that intersect here around business and education, fundraising, questions of access, these are questions that I know are close to Sheila's heart. We had a lengthy conversation about what the outcomes are yet we want to achieve, and it's an absolute pleasure to welcome her to the podium.
Sorry, I have to get a box.
I think she's got some magic tricks for us.
No, then I can see you.
Sheila, just 1 second. The mics in front of you work. You just have to press them down in the event where in any of the sessions you need to speak. So otherwise you might wonder why your voice is not being heard. Thanks, Sheila.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. We are absolutely thrilled at Inyathelo to have such a great turnout. It's really a special event when we can get such a great show from university leadership, local philanthropy, international philanthropy, and the business sector. From us at Inyathelo, this is the 6th retreat that we've organized, and we've always tried to bring university leadership together to discuss strategic issues that impact on their advancement. And so there have been different themes over the years. And this year we thought it is time to bring in business and philanthropy into the room, because ultimately, when we look at advancement, it's around attracting resources into an institution. And it was important that we start having some face-to-face engagement. We're aware that there have been sort of small meetings of business and universities, but they don't seem to have particularly gone anywhere. And we felt it's time to bring that debate out into the open. So the program was actually devised with a lot of research into what did business want from universities, what are the issues that confront people outside the institution about the institutions. And so that really is what drove the program. The questions we ask are actually quite simple. And we certainly hope that the panels we've put together will evoke a lot of debate. So we're really thrilled to have such a good turnout. The important thing for me at this stage is to really thank the Kresge Foundation that has been funding this program since 2005. I think we are the only program outside of the US that they support, and they have committed again for another 4 years. So we're absolutely thrilled to be able to keep up this momentum. So we have Bill Moses here and Rip Rapson. I'm not sure where you're sitting, right at the end. Rip is the CEO, and Bill is the program, what are you, a program director who we've worked with. I met Bill when I was involved at UCT, so our relationship goes back to 1998. It's a long time. So really, please go ahead, enjoy the 2.5 days, and feel we'd just like you to engage in this conversation. But I will tell you that at the moment, SABC is filming this session, so just keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sheila, and just greetings to all here, especially those of you in Auckland Park. So thank you very much for coming. Thank you also for CBS for serving as Master of Ceremonies for the next couple of days. It really is a delight to be with all of you, and I want to thank everyone for joining us for over the next couple of days. I'd also like to thank Inyathelo, of course, for setting this up. I think we're going to have a great conference. They've done a great deal of work into putting together all the events and programs. I'd also like to thank Kresge's president, Rip Rapson, for his support of our programs here in South Africa, and also our education work in the United States, where we promote very much the same kind of issues in both countries. I'd also like to thank all of our grantees in the room, and for those institutions, those universities that are not grantees yet, we encourage you to keep talking to us, because we hope that many more of you will become grantees over the next several years. In fact, I'd like to thank everyone in the room for joining us, just because it is so important to look at the intersection between business, philanthropy, and higher education. Higher education is a critically important building block in any society, particularly in South Africa, and so we're very happy to have you all here. I see a lot of old friends in the room, but I thought I would give just a little bit of background for those of you who may not know the Kresge Foundation. We are a private foundation founded in 1924 by a man named Sebastian S. Kresge. He created a chain of department stores called the Kresge Department Stores, later became the Kmart stores. Using his personal wealth, not the corporation's wealth, he created the foundation in 1924. Today, the foundation is about $3.2 billion in assets. We make about $135 million in grants every year. Most of our 90 or so employees work in the United States to promote opportunities for low-income people who live in American cities, but in the education program, we work in both South Africa and the United States to promote post-secondary access and success for low-income and first-generation students. Now, we focus within that group of students primarily on underrepresented students, underprepared students, or disadvantaged students, historically disadvantaged students. And we see these students as critically important in both the United States and in South Africa. It's a little known fact, but the United States will become a majority-minority country. That is, people of color will be the majority in the United States within 30 years. This is not a problem, but it is a challenge, because people of color in the United States typically do not have the level of college completion or university completion that the majority of the United States does. So over the next several years, we're going to have to work doubly hard to ensure not only that we can regain, theoretically, America's original purchase, the best educated nation in the world. We're now about the 12th or the 15th, depending on the year. But also working with those communities that traditionally have not gotten university degrees at the same level as the mainstream. We need to do this, of course, not only because a higher education degree or credential is the best way to provide opportunity for individuals, but also to make sure that the United States stays globally competitive. Fortunately, there's a growing movement in the United States to look at this issue. You have foundations like the Kresge Foundation, and of course the Gates Foundation, Lumina Foundations, and President Obama have all promoted what we call in the United States the college completion agenda. There's also, I think, an interesting side note here. Many of you have probably read Tom Friedman's The World is Flat, and he talks about the fact that people in Bangalore and Boston, and I think in this case Benoni, are also competing with each other. So there was a time when you didn't really compete with lots of different countries, but I think today it's even more important that countries be able to compete globally and to serve their individual citizens better. Now in South Africa, you know your history better than I do, obviously, but millions of people were denied opportunities to be teachers, to be physicians, to invent new things, to create new patents in this society because of apartheid. But at the same time, you have seen really wonderful improvements in enrollment in higher education since 1994. It's basically doubled in that time. The question, of course, though, is that although enrollment has doubled, outcomes have not necessarily doubled. So you haven't seen the kind of graduation rates you'd like to see in South Africa. And I think the answer, of course, is not to pass everyone, as more cynical people would say you should do. It's also not, I think, to reduce enrollment, because you have too many needs for certain kinds of skills that you're not going to get unless you produce them locally here in South Africa. So as our friend Brian O'Connell would say, the problem is not inside people's heads and the heads of the students that you are accepting to your institutions. The problem really is, how do universities serve those students to give them those opportunities to succeed when they come to university? For Kresge, we see two main pathways for this. First, we look at the students themselves, pathways to and through universities. It's about building a university-going culture at a high school, helping students apply to university, helping them access financial aid. Once they get to university, making sure that they succeed. And it's looking at not just what they carry as academic credentials, but the baggage they have from the communities in which they've come. Are they well prepared to serve and to work in these institutional settings? The second issue that we try to look at is to build the capacity of the institutions that serve our students. That's really building the capacity of universities. And here in South Africa, that's looking at advancement. How do we align strategic needs of a university with the fundraising needs, so that you really are pushing on both pedals at the same time and moving forward? I think that improving life prospects for an individual person and for national competitiveness is really behind the main thrust of our work. And South Africa needs teachers, you need physicians, computer scientists, policymakers, business leaders. You need, obviously, the whole variety of workers to make the society successful. But you need vibrant universities to nurture those people. And I think not any less important is that you need universities to provide support for people to be members of civil society. So it's not just about the economy, it's about both sides of it. It's also civil society. To be willing to speak truth to power, for example, no matter who or what might be offended. I think I bought, there's a Bantu in my bathroom last time I was in South Africa, and so I had to read it before I came back so I would be ready for Mr. McKaiser. And I have to say, I feel like we're best friends now that I've read your book and we know a lot, but I think your life experience actually personifies what a higher education can do. You're educated at Rhodes and at Oxford, and you think about not only was an individual opportunity provided to a person, but you now have a person who does speak truth to power, who does willingly ask questions about what should be done in a society. That wouldn't have happened had this person not had that opportunity. So you perform really in higher education both roles, really critically and really importantly. And that's true whether you're in South Africa or the United States. I think for those in the room from business, philanthropy, or government, without strong universities as an engine for economic growth and a bulwark of civil society, the question is, would you be able to have South Africa's second miracle, which would be a democratic, prosperous society for all? The question is, though, how can we develop South African universities to provide that opportunity for more people and to do it better? To paraphrase John Kennedy, it's not what can universities do for you, but what can you do for universities? Of course, on the other hand, you have to look at South African universities and ask South African universities, are you doing everything you can to provide the sort of fuel for the engine for this kind of miracle that you'd like to have? And I guess the question is are you producing the right kind of graduates? Certainly you're producing world-class graduates objectively, that's true. We see that evidence every day. But the question is, are your very best graduates indicative of all of your graduates? Are your graduates delivering to the society people with analytical skills, with the flexibility to change as society changes, as business needs change, as civil society needs change? Can they adapt? Can they innovate? And over the next couple of days, we're going to hear some really thoughtful conversations from people. We're going to hear from NMMU and WITS about some of the business partnerships they've had. We're going to hear from Sam Cargile of Lumina Foundation about some work that Lumina has supported, as well as Kresge and the Gates Foundation and a number of American foundations to improve community college completion goals in the United States by using data-driven decision-making, not anecdote, to make sure things happen. And you're going to hear some really interesting information on a survey we've done, research we've done, on sort of the state of access and success programs at South African universities over the next couple of days. So on behalf of the Kresge Foundation, its staff and trustees, thank you very much for joining us over the next couple of days. We look forward to it.